Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Hey Rohit, Mount to Jota for slash ESR for one free transfer. I kind of like Jota, I think, because you can kind of maximize 2 weeks out of him. I'm not exactly sure why you want to take Mount out, right? Is it confirmed that is it confirmed that Mount's not able to play, guys? Hey Kyle, hey Elliot, how are you guys doing? Hey Samarth. Hey Fran, hey Rico, hey Fran, bench Antonio, Huang, or Cancelo. I don't really like benching strikers, but benching Cancelo. So we're saying basically either Cancelo needs to get a good return, right? I would probably pick Huang and Cancelo there. It feels terrible to drop Antonio, but that's what I might do. Jerome, yeah, nice to see you. I've been missing some of the live streams because I've just been working really late lately, and I just really haven't had the time. Mostly just doing my transfers at night and then just kind of missing. Hi from Thailand. Hope you're doing well over in Thailand. I think it's quite late there, isn't it? Maybe around midnight time. Hey Harold, how are you doing? Hey Todd. Do I think Gallagher hauls against Wolves? So actually, sorry, Gallagher. My mispronunciation there, but actually, so one thing that I mentioned in terms of the in terms of Gallagher and why I was not so tempted in going for a -4 to go for Gallagher was that the impact of, I think Gallagher is much more suited to breaking down more open defenses. So actually some of the bigger sides who are trying to maybe hit them on the counter, whereas a lot of the teams that are actually kind of, parking their bus, Gallagher doesn't actually get himself that involved, I think, inside the box. And that was my kind of main concern, even though the fixture run is so nice for Crystal Palace. And then on top of that, the potential of other things such as maybe Olise coming into the team, but I still think Gallagher will continue to start. For example, when we were watching the Man City game, you can see in the counter attack it was kind of 4-4-2, right, for Crystal Palace, where Gallagher would be one of the strikers almost. I would still like to maybe see how he plays versus once again another team that parks the bus before I think about him, because my initial transfer is probably going to go for Gallagher this week. And then because of the Jota kind of news in terms of the Firmino injury, I decided not to go for that kind of play, because the idea for me is that I think either I went for Gallagher this week and I went for Jota next week, but it still makes me so far away from Cancelo, whereas I'd probably rather, just go straight to Cancelo in the next week and then make a decision on Benrahma in the subsequent week, because I could probably play a back four still. So we'll see exactly what happens there. I haven't taken a hit. I've just gone for Kane this week, basically, and the decision was to play slightly more conservative and not take another -4. I took a -4 last week, and I basically had a net outcome of -2. But I think it was worth it to take Christensen out of the team and not really deal with that, because he was basically just a rotating centre back, which is not very interesting. But let's actually go back to some people's questions. Awesome, Rico. Yeah, I completely understand. I know it. I know it really hurts to put Antonio on your bench, but I'm just looking at those two players and thinking I'd probably go Hang and Cancelo, right? I've gone for Antonio simply because I have to, because I'd rather play him than Benrahma. But I think you're in a much better situation than I am. Todd says -4 to hit to replace Grealish or keep him. You could always play ASM. Yeah, I mean, I would probably just play Grealish, to be honest. If you took a -4 hit to replace Grealish, could you go into Son this week? Could you go into Jota this week? I think Jota is a very nice side grade in terms of budget. To move away from Grealish, if you're thinking about it, Todd, I think that would actually be quite a nice -4. I would do that. Pratchett says, which two should I play from Damari Gray, Rafinha, Duffy, and Livermento? I kind of like the Duffy fixture, but I'm worried about the fact that you might have Sanchez as your keeper. I'm probably more tempted to actually just play Rafinha there in that situation, and then maybe play one between Livermento and Duffy. I still think Rafinha has a great fixture. I think this season, guys, we've seen that Leicester have been very, very poor, and that's why I'm not so interested in actually going away from Rafinha at this point in time. So Yogi says I need to bench 3 between Rafinha, Duffy, Cancelo, Huang. honestly, that's looking like... I also think for some of you guys who have a lot of enablers in your teams, it actually makes sense to go for a bench boost. FPL Focal, for example, is going for a bench boost, and when you actually look at his team, for example, it makes a lot of sense. I think FPL Inez on Twitter as well is going for a bench boost. If you have players like Smith Rowe on your team, and he's kind of like a bench headache, Livermento as well, and you have like a third place player who actually can play. For example, me, I obviously can't bench boost at this point in time. I'm setting my team up so that I can bench boost, much later in the season, arguably, because I can't play Mendy, and obviously it's not a good week to have Benrahma and Cody off the bench anyway. So a lot of you guys are actually with Hwang and Cancelo, for example. I think it could be a decent bench boost potentially. It also, removes that kind of decision-making doubt from that kind of aspect. Pritam says, I took a -4 hit to bring Son and James in. That's very nice. Son is a differential captain. I wouldn't disagree against it. I mean, I have the capacity as well to go for Kane as a differential captain. And maybe I might... I don't think I'm convinced to do it. I think Salah's still in fantastic form. Just curious, I'd actually like to see the West Ham and Liverpool head-to-head. Keep in mind, of course, last season, I think, Liverpool were able to beat West Ham both times last season, and that was a season where, Liverpool were pretty terrible all around, and very high-scoring games. We know West Ham, whenever they play big sides, don't really, I would say, defend in a compact way. For example, I remember last season when I was watching Lampard's Chelsea, which were terrible, they still managed to get a 3-0 victory versus West Ham. And yeah, I'm just not going to move away from Salah, I think. Is Havertz to Son this game week a good idea? I think it's an interesting one. I think I saw FPL Raptor also kind of making this sort of decision. I would probably be in the camp that yes, as long as you're not taking -4, it makes sense to move away from Havertz. I think Havertz has looked good as a football player, but as an FPL asset, not so much. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Mocha says, bench one out of Livermento, Benrahma, and Cancelo. I think definitely you just play Livermento and Cancelo, to be honest. I actually think Benrahma is not really due for a good game at all. I wasn't impressed by his recent performances. It's been really, every week I kind of look at my team and think, okay, how am I going to take Benrahma out of my team? And as I was kind of speaking to you guys, I wanted to maybe think about going for Gallagher. But I still think Wolves are largely a decent defensive side, right? So it doesn't really make too much sense from my point of view to actually move out of Benrahma this week when he's probably going to sit in my bench. And I'm quite happy to play Livermento this week versus a very out-of-form Aston Villa. Jerome says, bench Reguilon or Livermento. Been flipping between them for about a day now. I mean, I think the fact that you've kept Reguilon for this long and now actually Conte's joined, I think you probably just bench Livermento, maybe. I think Reguilon can still get, for example, an attacking haul, and I'm not saying, and I don't think, for example, that Livermento's clean sheet is guaranteed. I'm happy with that move, DJ, as well. Todd, you have Son already along with ESR Salah Havertz. Yeah, but what about Jota though? I think that was the move I'm suggesting, kind of away from Grealish, right? Who should start, Antonio or Duffy? I think if you've Sanchez as your keeper, you should go for Antonio. I don't really want to double up on Brighton this week. Am I really benching Benrahma after his 2 goals last night? Oh, don't do this to me, guys. Please, stop. I mean, it's tough though, isn't it? Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I am really looking forward to that. Rico, thank you so much for the donation. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Always welcome to give me questions, and I'll always try to answer them to the best of my ability. Also, I've actually opened up my DM so you guys can kind of send questions there. Look at a Twitter question, for example. You're thinking of hitting the bench boost. What do you think? This will be the last week where you'll have 5-star midfielders. Does this scream bench boost? What I'm worried about is that this entire bench could drop 6, and then obviously Foster's versus Arsenal. But at the same time, how often do you actually have 2 starting keepers whilst actually having a 4.0 keeper? And then still, I would say Livermento has chances to score. And then the clean sheet option might be very nice for Duffy. Yeah, I would do it. I would do it. Benrahma probably won't start. He played 90 minutes. I mean, yeah, like, so who's going to start instead of Benrahma, right? It's probably going to be Lanzini. And yeah, I mean, look, it was. I actually didn't watch the Benrahma game at all. And in terms of zonal matchups, I completely understand. I think a lot of people obviously are saying, we should target left wingers against Trent. And yeah, but the thing is, I just think that most of the goals, for example, coming from Liverpool this season actually really haven't come too much from the right hand side, even though I know that that's considered defensive weakness. We've seen, for example, last season that Robertson was more defensive for sure, but still, I think Benrahma, when you're watching the recent games, just really has been out of form in the Premier League. I still think, of course, the Premier League sides are much tougher, and yeah, I mean, that's just pretty much how I have to deal with that. And yeah, Benrahma has been hauling in the Europa League. I wouldn't say always, but I think Jota is a fantastic pick, Sam. Yeah, I think Jota is a fantastic pick because you're getting 2 weeks of Jota, and at his price point, it's always worth kind of moving in and out of Jota. Like you don't really have that many chances on a player with that like such favorable statistics. So for example, like if we just look Premier League stats, right, and I just show you like expected goals per 90, like you can see like Jota ranks like top. I mean all 3 out of 4 of the Liverpool front line, not named Salah, are within this list. I mean, Salah's right there as well. Top 5, like 4 out of the top 5 players in terms of XG per 90, and we know Torres has played much less games, all rank out there, like, above there. And I just think, yeah, Jota just makes too much sense. Like, if I had the capacity to go for Jota, I would do it. But that's life, Big boy Dama. Hey, Fran, do you think Diaz, De Bruyne, and Antonio to dunk? -8, you're saying? Honestly, I would just roll a transfer if I were you. Because right now, Lamptey isn't still starting games consistently. Dunk, I'm not that fond of. You're dropping basically another starter in terms of your defense, and then now you're weakening your defense, and now you have arguably 2 strong defenders. Williams is still a bit of a problem child in that team. And yes, Livermento, of course, is there to save you. But I would just rather you maybe roll the transfer this week because I still think De Bruyne has capacity to do well in this game. Or maybe you actually just don't touch Diaz and try to just make a move around De Bruyne, and Antonio. I would rather you just do that than take a -8. I don't really think Diaz needs to go this week. That's just pretty much how I feel about that. I just don't think the -8 is worth it because whenever you take a -8 to bring in someone like Duffy or Lamptey, I mean, that's a big ask for a -4. Broja or Armstrong? I like Broja more, for sure. Just going back up the chat, though. Ronaldo to Kane for a -4. I think if you want to do it this week, then it makes sense. If you're yeah, so, and that's why if you're waiting for the next week, it just doesn't make too much sense, right? So that's kind of how I feel about that one. Is a Spurs player like Son or Kane must have this week? I think you can wait for the next game week for sure. Who knows? Maybe one of the Spurs players that we've picked. For example, I've gone for Kane this week, right? And that could have been a big mistake. Like he could get injured during the international break, and I could be looking like an idiot the next week. Vlasic and Yarmolenko's injured. I agree, but it's about Lanzini, right, for Benrahma. Like for example, we've seen the substitution the last few times that Benrahma has been taken out was actually Lanzini. So that for me is going to be the question. I still don't think Benrahma is going to be benched. I think he starts. I mean, yeah, I agree. Like if you scored a brace the last game, like I find it very hard to see how a coach will bench you. I mean, do you think I should really be dropping, like, let's say, should I drop Livermento to my bench and then play Benrahma? Is that kind of what you're suggesting? Broja or Armstrong, can't decide between Saka or Rafinha. In terms of playing this week, I would probably play Saka. I mean, he's against Watford, which is a lot nicer of a matchup than Leicester, even though Leicester have a bit of a deficiency on the left-hand side defending wise. Bench Rafinha, Duffy, or Cancelo. I think tempted to bench Cancelo there, but of course he's on fantastic form. But it's probably going to be a back 3 of United. They'll probably defend. Anytime we've seen them play versus City lately, it's just been quite dull. I think, with the exception to one game last season where City battered them. But yeah, you disagree. Brentford scored all their goals from Trent's side. I mean, those are one of those kind of games where I think we've always seen like collapses from Liverpool. Like for example, last season Real Madrid versus Liverpool, all the goals kind of came from Trent's side as well. But I think it's also about how informed the left winger is, and what kind of role that player plays, like whether he's playing off the shoulder of Trent. Like Benrahma usually actually cuts inside, right? So then he's actually moving to more of a central area. Like if you watch his heat maps, he's not like an out and out left winger. Most of the wing backs, to be honest, sorry, most of the wingers in that kind of team are cutting inside, with maybe exception to Bowen, who's happy to move on to his right foot. Whereas Benrahma is clearly just looking to create plays when he moves inside with his right foot, and then he'll be moving into the territory of Fabinho. So that's kind of my worry there. Jordan Parr, you're rolling over your transfer, not expecting a great week, but going over the break with I think that's always a good. It's always a good play to go to the break with 2 transfers. Totally fine with that. Yeah, I mean, look, you can play Benrahma, but like as I say, like, do you really think I should be dropping Livermento for him? Who do you think the best West Ham mid? I think it would be Bowen, right? Just on form right now. You are getting swayed. I'm happy to get swayed if people can give me a good argument. You know, I mean, I'm not 100% sure about my own decisions, right? Like I've been thinking all week about maybe 10, 15 different strands of decision making, and this is the safest that I've come up with, and yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. I'm not really gonna make a move on Benrahma, but I'm happy to be swayed. Like, if you can make a compelling argument, that's totally fine. Like, I'm really happy to take in advice from other people as well. But I'm happy to argue as well. Cancelo to James, already have Chilwell. I wouldn't do that. I still think Cancelo is going to be a key piece to a lot of our teams. I wouldn't say that it's worth actually making a move away from Cancelo. I just think that he's a very capable defender, and perhaps this week isn't the best for Cancelo, but you have to think that Cancelo is a medium to long-term asset. There's no reason to move away from him. Yes, Reece James is doing fantastically, but I do think Chilwell is enough. Like, arguably, if you wanted to have Chilwell, Cancelo, and James, you could do that by playing a back 4. I wouldn't really think that it's quite reasonable to move away from Cancelo. I think Cornet, Kyrul, just to kind of respond to your question, I'd definitely go for Cornet there. Twitter, I'll check Twitter in a second. Who's confirmed out? Sorry, guys. Jerome, did I miss something? Long no confirmed out. Do you mean Alonso? Do you see any chance of Duffy being dropped to Brighton, go to a 4 at the back like they did against City? I do think so. I think Graham Potter, I think a lot of people at the start of the season were saying that, Duffy wouldn't be that interesting because of the fact that Graham Potter generally just enjoys playing out of the back more. And I think that when you play versus City, you're inclined to do so. I mean, Graham Potter is someone who clearly kind of dies by his own sword as well. But yeah, I think there's a possibility, especially when Lamptey comes back into the side, and then you have the option to play Webster and Veltman as centre backs, and then you can maybe move Dunk as well, even within the back 3. Have any of the double game weeks been announced this year? Not really. I think I would just follow Ben Crowley on Twitter to kind of have a good gauge of things. Brought in ESR for Gray, benched Raf, Huang, and Livermento. That's a strong bench there. I mean, a lot of people were saying bench boost. Why not consider this week? Alonso's out. Perfect, Jerome. Yeah, I mean, that's good news for me because I got Chilwell last week. What do you think of the Eddie Howe appointment at Newcastle? I like it, to be honest. I think, he's worked with those players before, specifically Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson, so I think it makes a lot of sense. In terms of starting one player, Cancelo, Gray, or Trent, definitely start Trent. Should you take Townsend out for Jota for a -4? I think that could be worth it for sure. Will Gallagher hit some point against Wolves? I think likely not. Maybe one assist could be the option. Broja is going to play. I'm not sure about that, guys. I think he's recovering from injury, so it's hard to kind of make a justification or a justified kind of punt on that. Who to play one from Rafinha, Antonio, Cancelo, or Livermento? It's tough. I'd probably play Rafinha, to be honest. Alonso's out. Yeah, got that. Chilwell or James? I've gone for Chilwell, but I think, arguably James is shooting or scoring goals at a ridiculously efficient rate. But with the Alonso news, I guess Chilwell makes it a little bit more sense still. Worth a -4 for Rudiger to Chilwell as he's nailed. I don't think I would go -4 for Rudiger. I think Rudiger is so nailed that it's worth it. For me, I took a -4 to go out of Christensen, but that's a little bit of a different situation, right? Because Christensen just wasn't that nailed. I think you want to move, make other moves away from your team than take away someone like Rudiger who's so nailed. You have money for both Son and Kane in one move. Which one should you go for? I think Son. I think Son might be the better move just in terms of in isolation as an asset. The reason why I've gone for Kane though is because it's a much easier move to go into Cristiano Ronaldo game week 16 plus. You made a wrong move about price rise too much. Sale Diaz for Livermento and Townsend for Smith Rowe for -4. Now I don't know which one I should bench. Completely understand there. I think you should probably bench Livermento and play Smith Rowe. If I'm reading that correctly. Start 2, Rudiger, Cancelo, Livermento, Christensen. Probably Rudiger. I mean, why not just go Rudiger and Christensen, right? Because I think the double Chelsea has worked fantastically so far. And then if Christensen doesn't play, he doesn't usually come off the bench. So then you probably have Cancelo maybe coming next or Livermento. Should I play Antonio and Damari Gray? Probably Antonio in my opinion. You have money for both Son and Kane in one. Yep, sorry, I've responded to that one. Lamptey in? Not yet, I think. Hey, Fran, is there a way to fit Jota in with the current midfield of Son, Foden, Salah, Rafinha, Mendy, or should I just ride out the 2 weeks? What do you mean? Like to go for a midfield 5, or do you mean like benching one of those players or trading one of those players? You have Son, Kane, and Reguilon. Were you too early? I mean, arguably not, right? Because the best fixtures are just to come, Jerome, so it could work out. Obviously, a huge punt and a differential for you, though. How do you rate Trossard and Lamptey going forward? I think Lamptey is fantastic. I would love to have Lamptey in the second half of the season when I can do a wild card. And my wild card in the second half of the season will definitely be moving away from Sanchez and then going for Lamptey if he continues to start. And then, going for Ramsdale. Why not Lamptey yet? Just because he's at a high price and spending money to move a 4.5 defender is always not something that I'm too interested in, right? Like if you look at my team, maybe I'd like to arguably get Benrahma out as soon as possible, probably after the Wolves game at this point, because I'm probably going to go Cancelo now. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much how I see things. Would you guys... So, I mean, just an interesting point. Would you guys go Benrahma and Livermento then, for my situation? What do you guys think? Bench Cancelo or Hwang? Probably bench Cancelo. I'm just going to respond to Twitter for a little bit now. So that guy's team. This team and take 2 free transfers for next game week or swap Christensen out for someone. I think if you want to swap Christensen, I think to be honest, like I would swap Christensen for a Chelsea fullback like Chilwell. But I would maybe just save the 2 free transfers because if Christensen plays, you're still in a good position. And yeah, I think it does make sense to go for Cancelo now. I would probably save the transfers. Got a bit of a headache for this week. Would you bench Antonio or Gallagher? I think maybe you bench Antonio. Smart Kane for CR7 or -4 for Son. I think so. It goes back to what you want from the game, right? Like I've gone for Kane because it's a bit more of a safer approach in my opinion. I don't think it's actually very safe in the sense that Kane's been doing well, but it makes sense that I think that if he is ever to do well, it would be under Conte. So I would personally prefer going Kane because you have CR7, and then it's so much easier to go back to CR7, right? Naziek, which two of the 3 do you prefer to start? I would probably just go attackers, honestly. The only reason why I've benched Benrahma is because, like, let's say if I had to make a decision between Antonio and Benrahma, I would still go Antonio, which is why I've done that. And then going back to Livermento, I just think that Benrahma recently just hasn't passed the eye test at all. And I don't think he's been playing like super elite defenses, right? So the fact that, yes, Liverpool have a little bit of a weakness on the right in terms of dealing with attacks on that flank doesn't really kind of stimulate me to take Livermento on, Benrahma back in my team and make a play there. Thomas's team. Would you change this at all? Worried about Livermento holding on my bench again. I mean, if you're worried about him holding on your bench, then put him as your first defender, right? Obviously, not many players here are probably going to be benched. I mean, I would be happy. Just going back to that, so sorry. Oops. Should you take Townsend out for Jota for a -4? I would definitely do that because I think it will pay itself off like within 2 to 3 weeks time. Obviously, when I'm looking at this team, though, I think obviously Azpilicueta is a little bit of a problem, but arguably, if you want to make moves away from that, that's fine. And then also benching Rafinha, it's interesting, but I think it might work out. Oops, sorry, I was going to respond to this. Disorders team took a late -4 for no reason at all. Knee jerking, something I'm very used to actually, and have done a couple times this season. So let's look at Mohamed's kind of. Is it smart to captain Smith Rowe if I don't want to captain like the majority, or to captain Tony? And I want to give a tip to the stream to maybe sign Mitchell from Crystal. Yeah, Chris Mitchell is on my cheat sheet actually. But I think Mitchell's a fantastic pick as well. Like, so it's going to be Mitchell or Lamptey, right? In my opinion, for those kind of 4.5, 4.4 options. As for example, like when I want to go out of Cody, it would probably be to go for Mitchell or Lamptey. So that's pretty much how I see things. I would probably go Mitchell because I have Sanchez as my keeper right now. If I ever had the money to actually just move out of 4.5 defender, but for now, like, you know, Cody just holds a position on my bench, so that's kind of the problem there. I wouldn't captain Smith Rowe. I'd probably captain. I honestly wouldn't move away from Salah on this week. Just looking at your team, I think Tony just hasn't shown enough to prove that he's worth it for a captaincy shout, and he's already arguably a good enough differential. It's not like Tony's ownership is sky high. You're not sure if you want to go Chelsea or fullback or Cancelo for Spurs. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, you can hold and just watch over the international break for sure. You have 2 transfers, Tony and Kane, to target the fixtures. That looks good. Who do you play out of Cancelo, Antonio, and Townsend? I would probably say... let me just think about that right now. Chelsea triple defense. That's pretty mental. I'd probably go Antonio. Yassine, Hassan, or something. Who should I bench between? I would bench Duffy for sure. You already have Sanchez as your keeper, so I think that makes the most sense. All right, so I'm just gonna go back to chat for a second. How's everyone doing? Start one out of Adam Armstrong, Antonio, or White. Probably start. I think White is quite interesting to me because I think Watford have been quite poor. Clown ignoring my questions. Okay. Interesting. I don't want to captain Salah, so who's better from Tony, Mbumo, Vardy, Chilwell, and James? I'd probably say I like the Chilwell shout. I also like Tony there. But I'm going for Salah personally, so I can't say. You pulled the trigger before price rises and did Rafinha to ESR and Armstrong to Tony for a hit. This was the move, wasn't it? I agree, because I think Armstrong just hasn't looked appealing as an asset, and I think you've moved into at least Tony, who, whilst he hasn't been appealing, still is in kind of very lovely form. And thank you so much, Carl, by the way. Broly is a good pick for sure. I agree with that. Hello, Fran. Will I bench Cancelo or Antonio? I think you bench Cancelo this week, probably. Tough decision. What do you think about downgrading Jimenez to Huang to free up money for Kane? I mean, if you don't have any kind of pressing moves, that I think that makes sense. Start El Yunusi or Duffy. I don't know why. El Yunusi. I would probably stay. I would probably start Duffy. Who should you transfer in, Huang or Tony? I'd probably say Tony has arguably the better fixtures, right, and just a slightly longer, more consistent run. But I think Huang is cheaper, so it's a question about whether your team would benefit from having an enabler like Huang, because you don't have to actually play Huang every week when he's that cheap. What do you think of Lamptey? I think Lamptey's a fantastic player. I really love watching him play, and he's done extremely well. You have 2 free transfers and you want to bring in Mbomo and Tony. I'm really not that high on the Brentford double up. I've got to say that for sure. I think, for example, like I would rather go Mbumo and Huang, you know, as a pairing, just for cheaper options, and then you can have so much money to play around. Will Christensen start? Got unsure about that, guys. Bench one, Benrahma or Gray or Gallagher. I'd probably bench Benrahma or Gray. Already started shaping my team for Son. Should I stick with it or reverse for Kane? I mean, what's the reasoning for reversing for Kane? I think going for Son is a fantastic option. Start Antonio or not? I'd probably start Antonio. I'm starting Antonio myself. So if I just show you my team, it's Marco. How do you like this team? I was top 700 OR last week. Missed that. I forgot captain on Raf instead of Salah. Dropped to 15k. Well, that's unfortunate. Forgot captain on Rafinha instead of Salah. How much points did Rafinha get? Did he get I think like 8 points or something? Oh well. I think you would I would still captain Salah, to be honest. I know he got 2 bonus points. I'm just thinking how much actual points did he get? So he got did he get 9 points then overall? Versus Salah's, I guess, 5 points. I'd probably still captain Salah this week, to be quite honest. I think West Ham's defense aren't elite, so that's how I think. Oh, the week before. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Chelsea back three is going to fire back, isn't it? I mean, you've gone for it, so you can definitely go for it. I mean, the thing with Christensen is if he doesn't play, at least you have someone else coming in. And I've had double Chelsea defense, and I've been pretty happy with it. It hasn't really backfired for me at all, so that's how I feel. Let's actually look at some message requests slowly. Should you go for a luxury transfer, Cancelo to James? I would definitely not do that. I'm just not a huge fan of going for luxury transfers like that. Vardy to Kane next week is the plan. Contemplating a move away from Reece James to Reguilon. If Spurs look good to free up funds to move Rafinha. That's a lovely backline, by the way. But I can kind of understand the Jota move. I would say that, yeah, I think I would say wait for Firmino. I would say just wait for, Firmino's injury assessment, because that kind of changes how we view how integral Jota is. Like I think your defense right now looks fantastic, even after the Chelsea kind of god tier fixtures. So that's my that's I would just say wait and see with that. I'd probably go Broya. I think if you go for Tony, it gives you the space to go for maybe someone like Jota, right? I would go for Tony. I think it makes sense. Hey, Fran, tempted to leave Diaz on the bench for Livermento this week for the easier fixture. Any thoughts? I think it sounds good, to be honest. I think United have chances of scoring, and then Livermento arguably has similar kind of results. Just going back to the stream, though, for a second. Who to start, Antonio or Cancelo? Everyone's having so many benching headaches around starting Antonio. I would start I would always go attacker first, in my opinion. Jota captaincy over Salah as a punt. I mean, you could do that for sure. Would you do Mahrez to Jota and Edu to Kane for -4? Just Mahrez to Son? Why not just I would just go actually, but you've got Jota though as well. I would do that -4. That -4 sounds really interesting, Aman. I would do that. Would you go for Jimenez to Huang just to free up funds for a free transfer? Yeah, I mean, I think if that is a luxury transfer where you're actually doing something, right? Because you're actually saving up money. So I think if the rest of your team is fine, then that's fine. Raf got 9, I think. Yeah, exactly. Raf got more than Salah last week. He must be talking. Yeah, no, I think it's the Salah hat trick and single points, single assist. I think. Benrahma to Son worth a -4 for this week. Gameweek. I think arguably yes. It's a tough fixture regardless. I know Benrahma scored a brace yesterday, but still not that interested in him overall. I've got Ramsdale in. Yeah, Tim, those were god tier fixtures, and you can't disagree with that. Start Huang or Livermento? Probably Huang. Any thoughts on Wilson for Tony in Game Week 12? I think it makes sense, right? Because like you're having a coach who probably knows how to bring the best out of Wilson, arguably knows how to work with some of the players in his team already because they've come from Bournemouth. And then if you arguably think he's a little bit more competent than Steve Bruce, then why not? Your bench: Havertz, Rudiger, McCarthy, Livermento. I would bench Boost. Why not? I'm honestly, guys, just to you guys, just in general out there, I would definitely bench Boost this week. It's a very exciting option in my opinion, for a lot of you guys. So I would definitely go for that. Son or Kane? You're going in for Son. I think Son is. I wouldn't disagree with either. I think Son frees up a little bit more space in terms of budget, but I actually think that the reason why I'm going for Kane as well is partially because I want to go back to Ronaldo as soon as possible without a hit, and then I also want to kind of free up funds so that maybe I can put Jota back in my team if he seems like a fantastic option. And that's kind of how I see things. Livermento or Benrahma? Benrahma scored 2 goals. Yeah, exactly. I know he scored 2 goals, but I still think it's Liverpool. He likes to cut inside. He's not someone who basically takes Trent on individually too often, and so I think for that reason, I'm still a little bit more keen on going for not Benrahma this week. Basically, maybe Livermento sounds a bit more appetizing. It's the same kind of. Actually, I'm dealing with the same dilemma here. I've got Livermento and Benrahma in my team. Son or Kane? You're going for Son. Yeah, go for Son is fine. Rudiger, Chilwell, and James, but going to bench Rudiger for Duffy to avoid clean sheet wipeout. Thoughts? But I mean, like, why have you picked 3 Chelsea players in the first place, right? Like, if you have 3 Chelsea players, you probably wanted them for a reason, right? So I think, why would you kind of move away from that when they're playing versus Burnley, for example? That's kind of my question back to you. So there must have been some kind of decision making there, and I know you'd now kind of rather avoid the clean sheet wipeout, but that probably clearly tells you that along the line, I think you probably made the wrong decision in terms of the 3 Chelsea defenders. I still think it's very reasonable to go 3 Chelsea this week, because it's not like I'm saying that Duffy's clean sheet is guaranteed. I also wonder whether you have Sanchez in your team too, because that would probably change things. Christensen to start after full 19 in CL. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, I don't have Christensen in my team anymore, and I don't really want to deal with Christensen personally. Apiliqueta to James, I think, is totally fine. It also actually gives you quite a bit of money. Bench Antonio or Livermento? Probably Livermento. What do you guys think? Should I bench Livermento or Benrahma? I'm just going to put a bit of a poll for you guys, just so you guys can let me know about your decisions. Benrahma or Livermento? You got triple Chelsea for last week, which worked perfectly, but Burnley, I think, will score. I think Burnley have looked like an extremely competent side, but at the same time, I think this Chelsea team is extremely well ironed. So I would actually keep triple Chelsea for another week, and then if you wanted to move away from one of those kind of Chelsea defenders, it'd be the next week when you kind of maybe move to someone like Cancelo or something like that. Would you start Manquillo or Livermento? I'd definitely start Livermento, I think. I don't really have much faith in terms of Newcastle. Cancelo or Livermento? Probably Livermento. Is Son and Kane a must-have this week? I don't think it's a must-have. I think you can wait till Leeds for sure. You can definitely wait for Leeds. Good bench. Pretty sure everyone will play bench boost. Everyone is going to... I generally think that around 20% of the community is going to play bench boost this week. And, yeah. You're currently playing Liver over Diaz. Do you think Diaz could get an attacking... I'm not really seeing an attacking return. I mean, it's hard to estimate when people will score a header. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't make too much sense. Kind of guessing that. Tony and Foden for Antonio and Rafinha, not for a hit. So the weird thing, right, is I'm not sure why you'd want to go out of Rafinha this week. I would definitely go out of Tony and then roll the transfer, Rafael. Because Foden versus United doesn't seem like the best fixture to bring Foden in. If anything, I would bring Jota in if you didn't have Jota. Manquillo to Chilwell, I think that's a fair move, Rico, because I think, yeah, like I'm not expecting really Newcastle to keep many clean sheets. Also not exactly sure what the new coach will do with Manquillo as well, because we've seen, for example, in the past that he hasn't consistently played. So that's a slight worry. Is Son and Kane must-haves? Yeah, I've already responded to this, so it's not a must-have. Captain, Jota, Tony, Chilwell over Salah. I would probably pick... I think the safest pick there, if you're not going for Salah, is probably going to be Chilwell. But then I think Jota actually is a very, very nice differential. And then Tony, I just haven't been too high on him. I am going to see Twitter DM, so I'm going to respond to them now. Ricky, awesome, yeah. Harry Kane fan account, looking to bring Kane in for... Of course, I mean, you're a Harry Kane fan, so of course, why wouldn't you do that? Done FPL. I made a -4 James for Cherney and Tony for Antonio. What do you think? Should I play Benrahma instead of ASM? Yes. I just think ASM I've been so cooled off of, but at the same time, there's a new kind of manager appointment. Both. Yeah, I'd probably go Benrahma actually. Once again, this is just going back to this kind of can we consider Jota after the international break? 100%. It's to look at Firmino. No pal. It would look like this instead. Ah, I see. To be honest, I actually think your team is quite decent. Like, I'm not sure why you want to go out of De Bruyne this week. Arguably, I think you could. I'd be happy even with rolling the transfer or just moving away from Antonio or Armstrong this week, if you know what I mean. Even ASM is someone that you could go out of as well. But it's a tough one. I just feel like the move is really to... Because you're probably going to move away from Havertz soon, so that frees up funds for you. And then I wouldn't really want to take Antonio out of my team because I just don't think ASM's that interesting himself. That's kind of what I'm worried about. I just don't think the -8 will probably hurt you overall too much. I'd probably bench Antonio. Let's look at Thomas's team. Captain Witch, Tony, Chilwell, Jota, or Salah over as a punt. Probably Jota, I would say. Cancelo benched. I don't think there's a great decision. Like, it's not easy for me to make a decision between Cancelo and Livermento, but I think, yeah, arguably you could bench Cancelo this week. Alexander Jones. Who should I bench here? Struggling to decide. I mean, Ben White has a really nice fixture. So, like, if there's any reason for Ben White to ever sit in your team, he probably should come in over Cancelo. So that's kind of my opinion. Sleeper Ocean. Oof. All right, let's have a look. What a big change in your team, by the way. Let's have a look. Looks like a solid team. Any reason why you're benching Rudiger? Kane done. Should I take ahead and bring in Broya for ASM in case my defenders are rested? Okay, that's a tricky situation. I don't think so. No. I would not take in a hit for a bench option, basically, if that makes sense. Definitely don't do that. Let's look at Terrence's team. Bench Rafinha or Antonio for this game week. Probably. I'd probably bench Antonio, right? I just think Rafinha has arguably a nicer fixture. Elliot, don't have the... Yep, Elliot, nice to see you. As you know, I've always been stuck in this situation for the last week. If I go Kane, I can only afford Gallagher from Sar, and if I go Son, I need to downgrade Ronaldo to Hwang. Don't have the funds to upgrade to Jota if I go Kane either. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar kind of thought process within my team selection as well, and I think the most justified approach is probably to go maybe Son. You can actually go Son and Hwang, and then you can go Jota the next week, if that makes sense. Who do you need to bench? Well, I definitely wouldn't bench Mount. What's the situation on Mount, guys? Has there been an update on Mount? Everyone seems to be going for Livermento, so I'm probably going to stick with Livermento. I'm going to respond to chat in a quick second. Just going to try to finish these Twitter tweet DMs. It's a tough one. I'd probably bench Antonio, honestly. And I might play Broya over Livermento. Steven's team. Kane and Brownhill in for Havertz Antonio. I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I just think it doesn't make sense to take a hit when arguably this is maybe one more good game of Havertz, you know. So that's just my genuine opinion on that. And then yeah, I think you make a decision after this week, even though it's ugly to kind of maybe transfer Antonio in the subsequent week. But that's just how I feel about that. Rang, here are there any changes I should make? I would not remove Cancelo from your team. Please don't do that. I'm actually not going to take that seriously, because I really think Cancelo is not worth taking. Nulium. Okay. Hi, Fran. Would you start anyone over Antonio or someone here? I'd be quite happy to start Gallagher over Antonio, personally. That's my opinion. Let's look at Aman. 5.4 in the bank. Jota, Kane and Jota Mahrez, and Edouard just Mahrez' son. Definitely Kane. This isn't worth a bench boost. No, I don't think it's worth a bench boost. Hi, Fran. What do you think about going Chilwell for Christensen and Mbemo for Mount? It will be a -8 hit. Is it too much? I know Mount could be on a minutes limit, but I would not take the move for Mount. I would definitely just go for the Chilwell play if you wanted to do that. Pray for me, Antonio. I will pray for you, definitely. Would you start Cancelo or keep it as is? I'd keep. All right, let's go back to some YouTube questions. Okay, so good bench. Pretty sure everyone will play bench boost. I think, yeah, a lot of people are playing bench boost for sure. If I just go straight to the top. Is Mount starting? Mount is out. Okay, yeah, then, I mean, I just think that even if you have Mount, you probably have a decent enough bench, right, where you can go for someone else in the team, so that's kind of how I feel about that. Duffy or Antonio? Probably play Antonio over Duffy. Which two to play? That's a lot of players that you're going to... Honestly, I'd bench boost. So some of the kind of suggestions in terms of the benching, I would just consider a bench boost. I would look at your team and say, like, a bench boost makes a lot of sense. My top 5 captains. I mean, this is so arbitrary, right? Because I think Salah's a great captain. I think Kane is a great captain. In fact, I might actually go Captain Kane if I'm mental. But we'll see. Should I Captain Kane? Tempted to Captain Kane, guys, just personally. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really have the balls for that right now, guys. I'm sorry. Bench Reguilon or Livermento? I'd probably bench Livermento. I think it's still a decent game to have Reguilon inside. You've captained Edouard. That's a massive gamble. Is it a good gamble? I'm not sure about that. I don't think gambling is good in general. Is starting Broja over Cancelo and unnecessary punts? I don't think it's an unnecessary punt. I don't think... are we guaranteeing... Are we saying that Cancelo is definitely going to get a clean sheet? Probably not. Moura for Townsend. I think that could be a very, very good differential. I think Lucas Moura is definitely very interesting, especially when you look at that kind of 3-4-3 formation. You're giving bad advice. Bench boost is better for double game week. I'm not giving bad advice. Like, if you look traditionally at anyone's decision making for double game weeks, you're forcing your team to, you're kind of forcing an artificial bench, right, for a double game week. And usually what happens is it doesn't actually turn out as well as it does. I think a lot of people have done kind of numbers in terms of, some people actually have started, for example, the league with bench boost at times, and that's worked out well. To get bench boost out of the way. But usually what happens with a bench boost is that you end up filling your team with fodder, basically, and it does affect you subsequently. Of course, a bench boost makes a lot of sense for the double game week, but you'll see a lot of other good managers using a bench boost this week. FPL Focal, for example, is going for a bench boost himself. I don't think it makes sense to say that you have to follow one kind of tried and true option, right? We know double game weeks are fantastic. A lot of people triple captain on double game weeks, but you end up getting hauls that are not actually as good as maybe a singular haul in a singular game week. It doesn't make sense to say what is, tried and true good advice. That's just my general opinion. I think that a lot of people who have gone for enablers this season have a very solid bench. even having, for example, a 4.0 keeper is extremely interesting. We've not really had that option too often, many times in FPL. That's just how I feel about that. Hey, Fran, should I captain Salah or Vardy? Probably Salah for sure. I think do I think Azpilicueta starts? I would say so. Actually, I don't think so, right? Because he did play the UCL game, so I'm not really fond of that. Bench boost Gallagher, Livermento, Duffy, and Foster. I do like that. I think Gallagher is a good game, and then the other two teams, even though they're playing arguably, weaker sides, so why not? You captain Chilla and Mbemo Vice. You're crazy, but good luck with that. Hey Fran, planning on Sar to Son, would you do it this week or next week? I would definitely go for Sar. I mean, if you can go for this week, James, I would definitely go for it. Why not? Who to start out of Christensen, Rafinha, Cancelo, Livermento? You already have a Chelsea defender starting. I'd probably still go for Christensen, right? Because the nice thing about Christensen is that even if he doesn't play, you can kind of have someone coming into the team. Is the risk of Broja coming on for a 1 point smaller than Cancelo not getting a clean sheet? Oh, that's a good point, Jellycat, actually. Yeah, I'd definitely go Cancelo this week. I wasn't really thinking about Broja's recovery. It might be the case that Hasenhüttl takes a bit of a cautious approach. You're right. Kane has 7 goals in 12 games against Everton. Salah has 9 goals in 8 games. Salah slightly better record, but close between them. When you say Salah has 9 goals in 8 games, do you mean Salah has 9 goals in 8 games versus West Ham, or what kind of stat are you comparing there? Because you're comparing what Kane versus a club, and then Salah versus his general stats, right? So that's a little bit of an odd separation, if that makes sense. Start one of Rafinha, Antonio, Cancelo, or Sar. I'd probably go for Antonio and probably go for Rafinha, to be honest. Livermento or Mount, who to start? Probably Mount. But I don't know. If the news is that he's still kind of injured or ill, then maybe Livermento makes sense. Fran, should I start ASM or Livermento? Probably Livermento. Roxy, thoughts on Kane and Son double up from Gameweek 12? I think if you have the funds to do that, then go for it. Last one, Fran, Antonio, Reguilon, who to bench? Probably Reguilon, to be honest. I still think that the defense will take a bit of time to kind of fold or mold itself, like in terms of both the attack and also just making sure that they actually contribute back to the defense and get the clean sheets that we know a Conte side can get. But right now, I wouldn't say so. Final question, should I regret the -4? Should you regret? I don't think you should regret. You make decisions because you think you are informed, and then, when you look at things with hindsight, it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to tell you to regret something. If you made a mistake, you can learn from it if you think. But that's how I've been treating my season as well. I'm not going to take, you try to make decisions with as much information. We know the world out there has asymmetric information. You have imperfect information. If we did, we'd be all much better FPL managers, but that's life, right? Tuchel said that Mount can get some minutes. Okay, guys. Yeah, definitely. I think then yeah, don't start Mount then. Don't start Mount. Thanks for the update, by the way. You're saying both of them have good records against the teams they're playing against, Everton and West Ham respectively. Salah has a better record against his opponent this game week, but they're both great options. Yeah, I think, and that's exactly why I'm keeping Salah. I think, first of all, he has the form, which Kane doesn't. Yes, he doesn't have the new manager boost, but I don't think that's needed when Salah is in this kind of form. And both, I think, Everton are arguably worse, in worse form, from a defensive point of view. Actually, West Ham have been quite solid recently, but yeah, that's how I have to kind of see things. Son to De Bruyne, Chilwell to Appiah, Foden to De Bruyne, and Kane to Antonio. I'd probably just go for... I kind of like the Kane option because... But then again, I guess getting Chilwell is quite important for your team. I'd probably go for the Chilwell move because Foden doesn't have enough, a lovely fixture this week. I'd definitely go for the Son and Chilwell option, actually, thinking about that. Chilwell is a bang on with Alonso out. Fantastic. Chef's kiss. I've got Chilwell myself, so I'm pretty happy. Jota for Havertz. Yeah, I think you hold on to that play, to be honest. I think Havertz still has a good fixture. Why Kane, not Ronaldo? I mean, Ronaldo has City, he has Chelsea, and he has Arsenal in the next 3 out of 4 game weeks. He has one Watford fixture, which I'm going to miss, and I'm going to be feeling terrible if he hauls versus Watford, but that's life. I think I have to just take it from the point of view where I think Kane will perform or outperform Ronaldo slightly over the next few game weeks, and then I can move straight back into Ronaldo in game week 16 is kind of my thinking there. Kane for Antonio or Son for Rafinha? Probably Kane for Antonio, in my opinion. Who would you prioritize Son more than Jota? I would say so, because I think Firmino can kind of recover from his injury during the international break, and I think Son has, Son is basically the pick that is not bad because he has good effective ownership already, and could price rise crazily if people are really high on Spurs. Chile B confirmed with no Alonso. Fantastic. Exactly. Too early to play bench boost. I mean, I had a bit of a discussion with someone in the chat earlier who said I was giving bad advice for suggesting a bench boost. I definitely can't go for a bench boost. My team sucks in terms of my bench, right? Like, I'm not going to play Cody this week, and I'm not going to play Mendy on a bench boost. And I don't have like a second keeper like a lot of people have. My keeper is just a backup for Sanchez. So I think if you do have, for example, 4 starting players and the fixtures are decent, I actually definitely think even though it's a single game week, it can be fantastic. If you want actually, like empirical evidence of why a bench boost in a double game week is not always a good thing, is because last season I did do a bench boost on a double game week, and I can tell you I got 7 points from that bench boost, and it was awful. So that's pretty much how things roll. I think you can definitely play a bench boost. Who would you bench out of Christensen or Antonio? Probably Antonio, to be honest, because I'm quite happy to have a Christensen clean sheet. Chilwell captain. Yeah, I think it's a good differential for sure. You know what? Let's have a captaincy poll as well, just so we can get a feel for how you guys are thinking captaincy, like non-Salah captaincies. I'm going to put Kane up there. I'm going to put Son up there. I'm going to add Chilwell as an option. And then I'm going to add Tony as an option. I think those will be quite interesting. Broyer or Duffy for my last starting spot? Probably Duffy, but if you have Sanchez, because, someone made a very good kind of estimation that, for example, if Broyer is coming back from an injury, he might be rested a little bit, right? He might only be playing kind of limited minutes, and therefore it makes more sense to actually go for the other option. Annoying when people put their best players on the bench and then brags about a great bench boost. Fair enough. I mean, okay, that also doesn't. I'm not suggesting that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to put, like, for example, like someone like Kane on my bench and then put a bench boost on and then like talk about how they have a great bench boost. But I do mean, for example, like some teams have, Smith Rowe, Livermento, Duffy. I mean, all like arguably that could be a strong clean sheet shouts from those 2 players. And then Smith Rowe has a good fixture. A lot of people have enablers, and then also Foster isn't a great keeper to have, but at least he's a playing keeper. Not often do you actually have 2 keepers, right, in FPL if you're actually playing consistently. This is almost the first season where we have a very nice kind of 4.0. Reason why you may have got 7 points last year was because of bad bench players. That's a very good argument. But if you, I mean, I'm not even sure what that argument means really. Like it obviously makes sense to have a double game week built around a bench boost. But you probably have to wildcard into that team as well. So a lot of kind of planning around that bench boost has to take place, and you could arguably still have a bad team. A lot of things can go wrong, in a single game week. So it doesn't always make sense to say a double game week is just supremely better. Especially since people are drafting and kind of creating teams in so many different ways. There's no kind of one-size-fits-all solution, I think, for FPL. I'm just saying that there's enough to say that you can have a bad bench boost, and that's it. And if you can get a good bench boost this week, why not just do that? Out of curiosity, why did you not get Foster in your wildcard drop but kept Steele instead? At the time, Foster actually wasn't starting. I had quite an early wildcard draft, so Foster wasn't actually starting at the time. So I went for a Game Week 4 wildcard, which I think at that point in time, we still had Bachmann. So yeah. Start Gray, Rafinha, Gallagher, or Mount. Probably drop Mount, I think, given the news. I would probably like to go with Gallagher. I don't think it's silly to actually have too many mid-price mids. Are you stupid for captaining Havertz? I don't think... I would definitely captain Salah over Havertz. That's just my genuine opinion. I actually think Burnley have looked really good lately. Like, have you seen the performance of Burnley versus City? They actually looked quite solid, and in a sense, that goal was a little bit fluky, right? Because it was kind of like a deflection, and then Bernardo picked up a loose ball. I don't think Mount seems available, but only for limited minutes, so he's like a 1 point or 2 point haul. I think maybe, arguably max. How do people have the courage to not captain Salah? I don't know, but I don't. Who to start, Rafinha or Smith Rowe? Probably Smith Rowe. It's Watford. Start Cancelo or Duffy. Probably Duffy if you don't have a second keeper. But just going back to the bench boost thing, I think, yeah, I mean, if you don't have a great bench now, very, very easily makes sense to go for a double game. You can just go for a bench boost there. That's my genuine plan. You can see my team is moving towards that trajectory, but I'm not going to say that there's hard and fast advice for every single team. You know, you're always baffled by how much Dijk gets out of. Yeah, I agree. I think Sean Dijk has overperformed consistently over the course of the last few years. Even that kind of European placing was crazy and out of this world, and he really deserves a lot of credit. Not only that, but I think right now, I think Burnley have looked as good as they have for the last few years because Cornet is such a dynamic player, and when you actually watch them crumple, for example, Brentford last week, you can say that I think they have the capacity to beat a lot of mid-table or bottom half sides. Now that they actually have this kind of structure with Wood and Cornet in place, playing a 4-4-2. I think that's fine, Immobile. I think that's fine. Bench Livermento or Benrahma. I mean, I've personally benched Benrahma this week. I have Livermento starting, but maybe I'll live to regret that decision. But I'm happy to do that. Because I think Aston Villa are in very poor form. And then even though Benrahma did score in the European Conference, the Europa League yesterday, I just think that I just haven't really been that high on him when I'm watching him in the Premier League. Should you bench Edouard, Cancelo, Mount, or Duffy? Probably bench Mount because of the news. And then maybe make a decision between Cancelo or Duffy because I would like to start Edouard arguably. Maybe just go for Cancelo because you already have the Brighton keeper. Antonio, Hwang, or Rafinha, bench one. I'd probably bench Antonio there, actually, when I'm looking at that. Is anyone captaining Ronaldo? I mean, if there's one person captaining Ronaldo, that will be someone, but I don't know who that's going to be. Benching when all your players are fit and facing good opposition is better than waiting for double week when you're not sure of opposition, fitness, and rotation. Exactly. Like, I mean, even double game weeks, you have a lot of players who get rotated, right? Because managers prioritize the health of their players and the overall kind of long-term fixture run, right? It's not like they're thinking like an FPL manager, like, oh, I've got to play Salah twice this week. That's what we'd like to happen, but you know, benches do happen. That a yes for the bench boost. I think you can definitely bench boost if your team has 4 starting players and they all have decent-ish fixtures. Nothing wrong with that in my opinion. Start Sar or Gray. I think you can go for. I think you can definitely go for Gray. Tough one there. I still think, for example, I wasn't that convinced by Tottenham's defense, and I think it'll take some time for them to kind of oil things together. And so for that reason, I'd probably still be a little bit higher on Gray. Whereas Watford just don't look very good. Start Livermento or Rafinha. Probably Rafinha. Who do you bench between Antonio, Cancelo, Livermento, and Christensen? I'd probably bench. Tough one. I'd probably play Christensen. I'd probably bench Cancelo. I'd probably play Antonio as well. Antonio and Christensen, maybe. How problematic is having Chilwell and Reece James? Well, according to the last few weeks, not problematic at all. But if you're talking like long term, I think, yeah, you can move out of one of them, maybe to Reguilon. But for now, I don't think it's a problem. Definitely not. -4 Christensen to Chilwell. I mean, that's exactly what I did last week. I went for Chilwell because I thought he was a bit more nailed. But, you know, obviously James got the haul of his life. And then, yeah, so, but the Alonso news, I think, makes the Chilwell move make a lot more sense, in my opinion. Should you transfer ESR for Saka? I have no other transfer to make. I mean, if you got one free transfer, then just save it, right, for the international game week. I would definitely not move into ESR for now. I'm quite happy for you to hold Saka. Who to play in order? Diaz, Livermento, or Duffy? Probably go for Livermento, and probably go for Duffy unless you already have Sanchez as your keeper. All the questions every week seem to be, should you bench Livermento? And it's so interesting. Chilwell actually won the poll, by the way, for non-Salah captaincy. So I think it makes so much sense because, first of all, you have Alonso out, but then maybe also Burnley have a decent defense. I just wouldn't go away from Salah, guys. That's just my personal opinion. Sarr and Christensen to Chilwell and Smith Rowe -8. I do like that move, Peter, but for a -8, I just don't think it's worth it. What was your move that you already made this week? Play Benrahma or Gray? Probably Gray, to be honest. I think Tottenham as a defense can be more easily kind of taken than then Benrahma will be able to get a haul from Liverpool. Play Antonio, Livermento, Mount. Probably play Livermento or Antonio, because I think Mount might not be playing many minutes, guys. So the update from someone who kindly gave us some kind of Tuchel press conferences. Yeah, I get it in terms of probabilities, but it doesn't make sense to dismiss that you can still do well on a non-double game week. And that's all I'm saying. It also takes a lot of kind of decision making as well, to craft a very good bench boost team on a double game week, which can maybe hurt you within subsequent game weeks and also prior game weeks. So that's something you also have to take into account. It's obviously not, probability speaking, a good thing to bench boost on a single game week, but that's why it's worked out for some people before, and why it can work as well. Good night, Fran. Good night, Elliot, as well. Take care. Please get some rest, yeah. Does the loss of Raya affect Brentford attacker potential returns? I do think so, because I think he was quite a composed keeper. But whether it affects the attackers, I would say not so much. I don't think he was like quintessential to, for example, how they were actually playing outside the back, arguably. And I think the actual defensive pieces themselves are more integral. Someone like, for example, Janssen, and how he contributes to play, on the right, and Ayer as well. Christoph Ayer is interesting. I think, yeah, I mean, I've made a bit more of a safer decision to go for Kane. Thank you, Ivan. And thank you as well. I really can't pronounce that name. I'm so sorry. But I'm just going to say thank you. But have a good night, everyone, as well. Is everyone going to bed, or are they not interested in watching the fixture tonight? Bye, James or Chilwell. I would say I would still go for Chilwell, to be quite honest. How do you actually pronounce it phonetically, though? Because I don't even want to attempt it, because I don't want to butcher your name. So like, if you like spelled it out in terms of like phonetics, like how would that work? Do you have any thoughts on going for a Kane and Son double up? I could arguably do that, right? But it would just mean a move away from Foden. So if I showed what the moves would be, it'd probably be like downgrading Benrahma, right? So like, I go for like someone like Gallagher, maybe, and then I'd have to drop someone like Antonio or Tony for like someone like Hwang, basically. Clearly, I don't have enough money if I go for the Tony option of the move, so I have to drop, let's say, Antonio, and then it would basically mean I go for Son at this point. And that still gives me enough money to drop Rudiger and then go Cancelo, basically, in the future. Is one variation of the team that I like. The only problem with this team is that I just think that the headache each week between the bench is not what I really want to live with. I have such a complete team here, and then I have to be picking between the best players, week to week, and it's really tough to do that, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm not so certain if I want to go deeply into enablers. I also don't really want to lose the kind of money I have on Antonio. I'd rather actually much have, maybe, like, if I, let's say, kept Foden, I would also like to go for a type of move where I have Jota at one point in time, and then I drop maybe the money in terms of a Tony eventually to an enabler such as Broya, and then I can play something like this while still keeping Cancelo. So this is like a rough kind of idea of where I want to be in the future, especially since when we think about it, like, a lot of people are dropping Foden or are actually going into Foden, and the fixtures are not nice, but then this run between 15 to 20 for City is basically impeccable, right? I want to have Foden very, very badly for that. And then with Jota, I think it really depends on the Firmino injury news, because even though the fixtures aren't, perfect, you could arguably keep a starting Liverpool player for 7.5, like literally until the end of the season, if depending on whenever Firmino comes back. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. Like, right now, based on my team, Benrahma doesn't look very good, but I would like to actually probably move away from Rudiger so I can capitalize on Cancelo starting from the Everton fixture. No idea why Everton is listed as such a tough fixture for so many people, by the way. It's so strange. But I think Cancelo can last me all the way to, I mean, yeah, once again, the end of the season, because he's such a good defender. So that's kind of my genuine thoughts on that situation. We have the same team. You've just got Hwang for Tony. I mean, Hwang is actually a really nice option. I really do like him. So that makes sense. Please start one of Antonio, Cancelo, Sar, Rafinha. Probably Rafinha. I actually still like the Rafinha fixture versus Leicester. I really think we have to kind of value Leicester slightly differently as a team. I think this season defensively they've been extremely poor. As an asset going forward, though, I think Leeds is very hard. I know you're from Poland. I can tell from the name, because I recognize, you know, Polish names from playing games with some Polish gamers. But I I just don't want to butcher your name, so that's why I apologize. Christensen to Chilwell or James. I'd probably go Chilwell. Bench Livermento or Diaz. Probably Diaz. Son Antonio, Rafinha, and Vardy. I would definitely like to have Son Antonio. I think for those considering bench boost should also think about during the double game weeks where majority of the players use that chip, and if you feel, I agree 100%. You have to look to the future as well. And that's why I also say look at Ben Krellin, look at the double game weeks, look at the teams who are supposed to have double game weeks. They're nice teams, right? It's going to be Chelsea, and some of those kind of other big teams where maybe it makes a lot of sense to actually have those players on the double game week. But yeah, that's it. Who do you bench out of Livermento, Mope? Is that Cancelo, hopefully? And Gray? Probably bench. I'm tempted. I'm tempted to keep Mope because I think a central threat has been extremely good versus Newcastle in the last few games, and then I'd probably bench Gray, and then I'd probably actually bench either one of Livermento or Cancelo. Make a decision there. Broja versus Gallagher, Rafinha. I would say Broja. The worrying thing about him is that he might have less minutes because he was injured. Bench Livermento, Benrahma. I'm actually benching Benrahma myself. So if I just show you my team, I'm playing Livermento. I might live to regret this decision, but I'm happy to do it, I think. Oh, it's such a tough decision. Such a tough decision. We have 4 minutes left. Hi, Anka. Would you bench Cucurella or Livermento? I'd probably bench Livermento, actually, because I think Newcastle's a bit nicer of a fixture. Cancelo or Antonio, who to sit out this weekend? Probably Cancelo. I like to keep attackers on. Do you play Benrahma over Mount? Probably yes, because I think Benrahma will play the 90 minutes and Mount might not play the full minutes. I think, for example, if Chelsea take a dominating lead, I think Tuchel might just rest Mount, right? There's a decent capacity for that to happen. Our fixtures for Edouard, I think the fixtures for Edouard are fantastic. The question is whether he's going to be starting every single game, and that's the tough decision that you have to make. Double game weeks will be a big thing again. 100% double game weeks will be a big... Double game weeks are always a big thing. So I'm not trying to dismiss going for double game weeks. I think double game weeks are very important and worth looking at. You want to kind of also make decisions based on double game weeks as well, because they're fantastic for chips. Bench Rafinha or White... I would actually probably bench Rafinha there because I think White has a nice fixture versus Watford. I'm expecting a clean sheet for Arsenal. Kane, come on. I would love that. I will. Okay, I will prepare to pronounce your name correctly live next time. You have me up for that. News on Christensen. Do I need to replace Diaz? I don't think so. No. I unless you have Cancelo and you're doubled up on City, I don't think there's a reason to replace Diaz right now. Cancelo or Rafinha? I'd probably play Rafinha. I'm just a little bit. Please, yeah, I already answered the question in terms of Antonio, Cancelo. I would just drop Sar, right? Cancelo, Antonio, or Livermento, who should start? Probably Antonio and probably Livermento. Tough one. So many people are benching Cancelo this week, which is crazy. But I actually think that what we've seen with this United side is that they're able to score goals within this kind of three at the back structure quite well, because they at least have a little bit more control of the midfield, even if they're playing counter-attacking football. And then I think, it's Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Play Pinnock or Hwang. I'd probably play Hwang. I generally just prefer attackers than defenders, so that's kind of how I see that. Yeah, I'm probably playing Livermento this week, guys. It's going to be sad if Benrahma hauls, but you know what? Whatever. I'm actually going to have a look at maybe the live ownership as well. So it's actually worth looking at top 10k. How How many people own Benrahma? So let's have a look at top 10K player ownership. Let's look at West Ham, for example. So Benrahma's ownership this week is extremely low, 12%. So he represents a good differential. Everyone has Livermento on their team, but his effective ownership will be still quite high. That's based on the last week, of course. Thank you. I mean, I'm very happy to have discussions, and I encourage you as well to I like the fact that you were pushing, your point of view. I completely agree. It's, yes, FPL is partially about probabilities, but the way that people have divergent teams, it makes sense to kind of be aware of that. But I hope you guys had a lovely deadline. I think the deadline is over, isn't it? So I didn't. Oof. Well, it's going to be a big game week ahead, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope the best for you guys. And once again, of course, I will probably see you guys in the next week live stream. Please catch the content in terms of the YouTube videos. I'm always very happy to kind of give my opinions on players, even though I don't own them. I'm always looking at different assets in the future. I hope, yeah, exactly. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and take care.